So starting this Saturday, 42 million people are at risk of losing federal food and nutrition benefits under the SNAP program. WIC, another food assistance program for women and children, could also run out of funds next week. More than 24 states have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over its decision to suspend SNAP funding. And as Jackie mentioned, this comes after the USDA announced it would not issue November benefits because of the shutdown, despite having a $6 billion contingency fund. Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri has introduced a bill that would fund SNAP until the shutdown is over. The bill is co-sponsored by Democratic Senator Peter Welch of Vermont.
For a lot of people in this building, this is sort of a game. You know, it's like, oh, who's ahead, who's behind, as if it's a horse race. It's not a horse race. 42 million people are about to go without food, including a lot of children. In my state, it's 650,000 people. I mean, that's extraordinary. It's 12% of the American population. And that's before we even get to people like the military who are not going to get paid, air traffic controllers who are now no longer getting paid. I mean, they've got families too. All of these people should be paid.
As Senator Hawley mentioned, federal workers who keep air travelers safe are also feeling the pinch. As of yesterday, air traffic controllers are no longer receiving a paycheck, and TSA officers missed their first full paychecks last Friday. And Vice President J.D. Vance said yesterday that military members will get a paycheck this Friday, but didn't say where the money would come from. Active duty troops could start going without pay by November 15th.
So Donnie, these government shutdowns, in Washington, they are, it's sort of political gamemanship. Who's getting the best of whom? Right now, the Democrats appear to be getting the best of the Republicans. And you're starting to see it in the poll numbers. But as Josh Hawley said there, this isn't a political game.
You believe
the stakes couldn't be higher. This is about whether people in Josh Hawley's state, people in Tommy Tuberville's state, are able to feed their families. It's about whether people in Missouri and Alabama are able to fly and fly safely in and out of their states. I mean, you could go down the list of things that are being impacted, and yet for some people like Tommy Tuberville, this appears to be nothing more than a game.
There's somebody that's going to put an end to this. I think it's Donald Trump. I think he's going to start to feel this, and he's going to start to understand. He's going to talk to a lot of his people, and he's going to see, you know what? My numbers are starting to slip. This does, at some point, it creeps into the ether, and to the point of when people stop eating, when they don't get their Medicaid. That's more than creeping into the ether. That's really creeping into people's homes. And I think Donald Trump at some point is going to go enough. He's been very quiet on this. He's literally traveling the world. He's doing his world diplomat thing. I think when he gets home, and I think next week when there are midterms, and obviously they're in different states, it's Spanberg, it's Mikey Sherrill.
Right.
I think when the Democrats win, he's going to say, you know what, guys, let's get this done.
So starting this Saturday, 42 million people are at risk of losing federal food and nutrition benefits under the SNAP program. WIC, another food assistance program for women and children, could also run out of funds next week. More than 24 states have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over its decision to suspend SNAP funding. And as Jackie mentioned, this comes after the USDA announced it would not issue November benefits because of the shutdown, despite having a $6 billion contingency fund. Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri has introduced a bill that would fund SNAP until the shutdown is over. The bill is co-sponsored by Democratic Senator Peter Welch of Vermont.
For a lot of people in this building, this is sort of a game. You know, it's like, oh, who's ahead, who's behind, as if it's a horse race. It's not a horse race. 42 million people are about to go without food, including a lot of children. In my state, it's 650,000 people. I mean, that's extraordinary. It's 12% of the American population. And that's before we even get to people like the military who are not going to get paid, air traffic controllers who are now no longer getting paid. I mean, they've got families too. All of these people should be paid.
As Senator Hawley mentioned, federal workers who keep air travelers safe are also feeling the pinch. As of yesterday, air traffic controllers are no longer receiving a paycheck, and TSA officers missed their first full paychecks last Friday. And Vice President J.D. Vance said yesterday that military members will get a paycheck this Friday, but didn't say where the money would come from. Active duty troops could start going without pay by November 15th.
So Donnie, these government shutdowns, in Washington, they are, it's sort of political gamemanship. Who's getting the best of whom? Right now, the Democrats appear to be getting the best of the Republicans. And you're starting to see it in the poll numbers. But as Josh Hawley said there, this isn't a political game.
You believe it?
The stakes couldn't be higher. This is about whether people in Josh Hawley's state, if the Democrats win there, that certainly would be a wake-up call. I'll tell you, Ed Luce, you've written about Donald Trump's luck. I would be the last person on the face of the earth to say that luck will ever run out, because I've made so many calls about Donald Trump's political career post 2017 that just were wrong. You talk about the political economy of Trump's luck. I will say, though, a lot of things are coming together at the same time. We could talk about bulldozing the White House East Wing, building a grand golden lined ballroom. We could talk about a $20 to $40 billion bailout of Argentina. We could talk about farmers up in arms and Republican senators up in arms about the importation of Argentinian beef. We could go down a long laundry list. But all that feeds in inflation. All that feeds into, look at these numbers, and these are the numbers that, of course, beat Joe Biden. And it was Joe Biden's economic approval rating dipping below 40% that ended up costing him the presidency. Here you have the Quinnipiac poll showing him at 38%, Reuters 35%, The Economist 37%, AP 36%, CNBC 42%. That's his economic approval rating. And you can't help but just think, everybody, independents hate a government shutdown. It means that the parties can't work together. And it's kind of hard to blame the other party if your party has a monopoly of power in Washington, D.C. in all three branches.
Yeah, look, if there weren't an AI gold rush going on, whether you think it's a huge bubble or not, this is something that started before Trump became president, but has been really building up and would be happening anyway. It's what economists call a secular trend, not a cyclical trend. But if this wasn't happening, if the NVIDIAs and the Apples and the OpenAIs and the Microsofts, et cetera, were not rolling out unprecedented investment numbers, America wouldn't have been growing this year. It might actually be marginally negative if you look at the breakdown of the numbers. So this is just that's just a pure windfall for Trump. The uncertainty that he's introduced into the business investment outlook through these trade wars. I mean, we're going to get a meeting later today, tomorrow, but tonight our time with Xi Jinping. But the uncertainty he's introduced is really bad for growth, but he's been flattered by this AI windfall. I think that luck is something Napoleon said was the most important quality in a general, in one of his generals. It's that sort of weird thing that either somebody has bad luck or good luck. Trump was born lucky. He might deserve to have a bad economy, but those of us who keep forecasting recessions that don't happen can't bank on them happening in the next 12 months. This is not necessarily how things go. He's a lucky man.
Yeah, my reporting lines up with what Donnie actually just said, that I think we'll see next week sometime as this November 1st deadline arrives and we see the benefits cut and Trump returns from Asia and I think has less of a foreign policy focus. I've been told by aides he'll be more engaged, perhaps, on the shutdown. To this point, he's...
Now, are they worried? Are aides starting to get a little worried?
Yes, there's some anxiety growing here. It was a deliberate strategy from the president to not be involved early on. They thought the Democrats were going to take the blame. They thought the Democrats would fold. He wanted to appear sort of above it. We saw the threats with Russ Vogt, like we're going to slash the federal government. That's largely not come to be. But there is a sense, as this has dragged on and as the real-world consequences begin to pile up, they can read polls, too. Some aides have told me in the last couple of days, some anxiety is starting to build, that he is going to take more and more of the blame here because he does seem so detached. Focusing on foreign policy, that's one thing. White House ballroom is entirely another. And there's a sense these are bad storylines for him. Probably look to next week for the president to try to step in more. Whether
Donald Trump's handling of the current government shutdown reveals a profound failure of leadership and basic empathy, exposing the human and economic costs of his political gamesmanship. At the heart of this crisis lies more than a budget dispute. It is the deliberate suspension of essential federal programs that sustain tens of millions of Americans and residents. Over 42 million people are at risk of losing food assistance through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and another program for women and children faces imminent funding shortages as well. Despite having a $6 billion contingency fund just for this purpose, the Trump administration has chosen not to release benefits, effectively purposely weaponizing hunger as a bargaining tool in a political standoff. Trump and the Republican Party are starving Americans to make a point and to try to force Democrats to give our health care up so that they can fund his billionaire friends. What makes this particularly egregious is Trump's complete detachment from the actual crisis. You think he's ever had to worry about paying for food? You think he's ever had to use SNAP? Do you think he know what it is, or what's involved, or what people have to go through, or what the actual statistics are? Of course not. Of course not. As federal workers, TSA agents, air traffic controllers, and even active duty military begin missing their paychecks and begin using SNAP as well, only to be cut off from it, the president remains abroad, remains playing golf, remains talking to his buddy leaders, projecting this image of indifference to it, and just blaming Americans and blaming Democrats, while Americans are just left scrambling to feed their families and pay their bills. This level of inaction is actually just negligence disguised as strategy. He's purposely going somewhere else and ignoring the problem just to hurt people. His administration initially assumed Democrats would take the political hit for the shutdown and give in right away like they did last time. Instead, as poll numbers begin to slide and the real consequences of the Republican and Trump government shutdown become visible, and when people start to acknowledge that this is the Republicans' fault, Trump is the one who bears the blame. Even members of his own party, like Senator Josh Hawley, are breaking ranks, co-sponsoring bipartisan efforts to restore funding to basic programs like SNAP. Millions of people rely on these programs for food and to survive. You can't just shut them off like that. The broader issue lies in Trump's approach to governance here, which treats leadership like his personal toy, like a spectacle, a contest of winning and losing, while ignoring the stakes involving real human lives. When 12% of the American population faces food insecurity due to federal inaction or negligence or private interests, the argument goes beyond politics and becomes an ethical and moral question. 12% of this entire country, the most powerful country in the world, faces food insecurity? Shame on this country. Shame on. Imagine that. We could actually do something about that. We could make sure everyone can eat, everyone has food. And 12% of this country has food insecurity, doesn't know where their healthy food is going to come from, or faces higher costs and don't know where to go to get inexpensive or free food. Rather than address this problem that is innate to this country and yet worsened by his actions, Trump focuses on his vanity projects, such as the ballroom, the White House ballroom, where he's going to dance with all his friends, and going on foreign trips that serve his public image to other leaders more than actually serves us, the people who live here. His behavior reflects a pattern of governing through distraction and showmanship and neglect, rather than responsibility and actual competence and knowing what he's doing. We think that he's not known what he's doing for a long time, but especially now when he's not even bothering to pretend. And meanwhile, his supposed economic successes, where? I don't see them. Apparently, they stem mainly from circumstances that he has nothing to do with, because every time he does get involved, it goes down instead of up. So analysts point out that the ongoing growth of the stock market, and it looks fancy, it looks big, oh, the numbers are higher, but this is buoyed, and it is a bubble driven by an AI investment boom. It's a bubble that may pop, may not, may shrink, we don't know, but this has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the state of technology and of these companies pursuing investments in an environment that may not be healthy for everyone else involved. But this is also a global trend that started long before his presidency and would have continued under any administration. Beneath that surface, uncertainty fueled by trade wars and erratic fiscal decisions has damaged long-term business confidence. What countries would want to trade with us when Trump can just slap a 20% tariff on them on a whim over a tweet or something? The AI windfall, the AI industry right now, has masked what would otherwise appear as a stagnating economy. Even so, the companies are doing this well. What does that say about the well-being of the people? The GDP, the stock market itself, the AI bubble, the tech companies don't say anything about the well-being of the majority of Americans, of people who actually live here and go through the consequences of prices going up. What does the S&P 500 have to do with any of that? In truth, Trump's perceived economic luck in that the stock market still is going up and gold is going up and numbers are going up, it actually just comes from timing, not from sound policy, and doesn't even have any effect on what people are going through and the actual suffering that is happening beneath that numbered surface. Ultimately, this shutdown and all the suffering that's caused by it underscores how Trump's presidency operates on completely misplaced priorities and political calculation and strategy purposefully over genuine governance that considers what people want and what people need and what is ethical, obviously. While millions suffer the consequences of his refusal to act, he remains fixated on just his optics and loyalty to him and making sure people stay in line. But as public frustration grows and approval ratings continue to decline, his above-it-all posture will begin to collapse, and we'll see more and more of his frustration that the majority of people don't like him. Especially when the No Kings 2 protests came out and over 7 million people showed up and he said, those don't represent real Americans. You think 7 million people in this country can possibly show up to protests and not represent that massive portion of America that resents Trump? Of course it does. And of course, the people who are very angry at Trump and Republicans are represented by tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people across this country. Real leadership requires engagement, empathy, accountability, competence, honesty, integrity, and those have been long gone from the office, and they are definitely qualities that Trump continues to lack.